Hello, and thank you for joining us on Giving Voice to Depression. I'm Bridget.
And I'm Terry. More than 350 million people worldwide suffer from depression, but you do not have to have it yourself to be affected by it. Its prevalence pretty much guarantees that someone you care about battles its darkness.
This podcast tries to shine some light into that darkness. We're not experts, and we're not therapists. We're sisters and best friends who live with depression and who are committed to encouraging healthy, healing conversations about mental illness.
Season 3 of this podcast is sponsored by the Charles E. Kubly Foundation, which supports efforts to reduce the stigma of mental illness. We are solely responsible for podcast content.
Hi, Terry.
Hello, Bridgie.
When we talk with people about depression, almost every conversation includes the insidious battle of reoccurring negative thoughts. And the loss of interest, vitality, and hope.
Yep.
And there is certainly, obviously, no one-size-fits-all experience of this illness, as its depth and severity can change regularly and randomly for any of us.
Absolutely. And then there are other factors, right? There are cultural differences that affect everything from prevalence to reporting to treatment. I read that it's widely reported that anxiety and mood disorders are much less common in China than in the U.S. I didn't know that. And according to research by the National Institutes of Health, members of ethnic minority groups are less likely than white middle-class people to seek professional treatment for depression and other mental health problems.
So if depression isn't complicated enough,
right,
there's all that to work in there too.
Mm-hmm.
Today our guest is Philip, and we met him at a mental health conference and knew right away that we wanted him to give voice to depression.
So we very seldom mention appearance in these podcasts because it just doesn't matter. Depression hardly cares if you're a supermodel or an average Joe, rich, poor, black, white, a rocket surgeon, or a podcast host. But Philip Roundtree, wearing a custom-made T-shirt that says in huge letters, "This is what depression looks like," gets your attention when he walks in a room. And you have a very unique look. So you describe yourself.
Okay, so I am 6 foot. I am 225 pounds. I'm a power lifter, bodybuilder. So I have a little bit of muscles. I have a big beard, an infectious smile, and I'm dark skinned because that does play a part in it too.
Well, let's talk about yesterday because that was the first thing I noticed about you. You walked into the session with a huge smile on your face and a shirt that said, "This is what depression looks like."
Yeah.
And I would say incongruity, except that I know that A, we hide a lot behind a smile, and B,
exactly,
we also have happy times.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
I loved that. So talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, that was something that I created. So when I am out, when I'm at these, schools in urban settings, and they see me, they may or may not see the shirt, they just have somebody to say, okay, you know what, I'm not alone in this. Because a lot of times, just, as you know, with mental health, we feel like we're alone, like nobody else is experiencing it, even though the person you probably talk to every day is experiencing this, something similar.
Right.
So that's why it's important for me to wear this, because, again, like you said, we have happy times. I smile, I laugh. That's my whole life. But, yeah, I woke up this morning, I wasn't feeling the best. And it's just like, all right, let me take the medication and then go on. It's something I deal with on a daily basis. I'm not afraid of it. I'm not ashamed of it. This is a part of who I am.
A few other parts of Philip, a therapist, include bachelor's and master's degrees in social work and a professional focus on wellness that includes physical, emotional, spiritual, and mental health.
It is such a taboo, overly stigmatized topic within the Black community.
Tell me about that, because I am obviously a middle-aged white woman. So I know about the stigma in general, but I do not know about the stigma within the Black community. So educate me.
So, I think it's the overall stigma of mental health is just universal. We're not supposed to talk, as a society, we're not supposed to talk about it. Your troubles are your troubles. You're supposed to deal with it. You're supposed to be strong. You're supposed to be resilient. You're supposed to be able to overcome and pull yourself up by the bootstraps. Me being a man, that's intensified. And then when we come and add me being a Black man, it's to the point where at times it's just unbearable.
Philip says it is hard enough to talk about and manage depression without dealing with medical mistrust, discrimination, or cultural incompetence.
I mean, in the Black community, for fair reason, we just don't have these discussions. We're talking about historical trauma that has happened to us since slavery. And so we fast forward where we've had to be resilient. We had to hide our emotions in order to cope with what was happening to us. And so again, we go from slavery through the civil rights and even up until now with what's happening in society with the social injustices and what have you. And so, again, my role is to try and have that conversation with people that look like me because representation matters. And so, when we look at, our Afrocentric values, as a culture, we're very religious. And so, as most people, you give your troubles to God. You pray. You pray, you pray. And I see it a lot, especially on social media. Listen, I tell people, prayer is a wonderful coping strategy. But also, God made doctors and prescription medication to assist you. This is something I've been dealing with, being diagnosed with depression and anxiety for some years now. They say it takes 10 years for you to finally get some assistance. I'm sure that number is even higher for African Americans because we know that, we're only getting treatment at 1/4 of the rate of any other ethnic group. And so survival, has trumped our wellness at times for a lot of people, especially in minority communities, impoverished communities and things like that, because we have to survive first and then we can worry about the rest if we can.
Fortunately, Philip could and did, because despite all his training and work in the field of mental health, his own was really challenged.
Part of depression and anxiety, you may perseverate on a thought for a long period of time. And for me, it was literally from I woke up one day and the thought never left. The thought never left until I started taking medication 2 years ago. And so I experienced...
Are you talking about the thought of suicide?
The thought of suicide.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, the thought of suicide, 5 to 6 times a day at least. There's been times where...
Explain
Go
that
ahead.
to me. I mean, what does that mean?
It means, as far as just the thought, I shouldn't be here. I don't want to be here. I'm over this. I just want to go. I want to die. Me sitting in my room, not leaving the room, not eating, just a part of that, the whole depression symptoms. Me being on the interstate, I-90, I'm from Philadelphia, so I-95 and I-76, where I'm crying profusely because I just want to crash my car, having to pull on the side of the road and use my support systems to potentially help me. So, I don't know I always say, I don't know what stopped me from crossing that line. They say you have a daughter. Yeah, I have a 9-year-old daughter. I can't say she stopped me from crossing it. I have no idea what, but it did. Something did. Something stopped me. Something inside of me said, you know what, call somebody.
So we want to pause for a second here and ask who you have programmed in your phone that you can call if you ever need to reach out and get some support. If no name comes to mind, and we really hope that at least one does, put the Suicide Prevention Lifeline number in your phone and call them. We'll say it and post it soon. But don't try to battle depression alone when it gets really bad. Because remember, it doesn't fight fair. First, it exhausts and depletes you. And then it starts trying to convince you your life is hopeless. Here's Philip again.
I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. That was a time it was rough. Yeah. It was rough. And it was, as soon as I started taking the medication, it takes some time to metabolize, but, within 2 months, it just disappeared. And then when it disappeared, I'm like, nah, what's this? And so I'm like, sometimes I sit and try to think like, okay, I want to die. And it just goes away. Again, I don't advocate one way or another for prescription meds. I know for me that's what I needed to help me with that. Yep. And so it was mind-boggling. I'm still baffled by it,
But it's part of, in my mind, what lets us know it's a real illness, right? Because if it was just some weakness I have, taking a pill wouldn't change that. Right?
Exactly. Exactly. And that's, one of the things that, I try to talk about, that is that it's not, it doesn't it's not a reflection of, I hate the term strong and weak. Yeah. It's not a reflection of your character. Yes. This is just something that happens. Mm-hmm. And just for everybody, we just need to empathize more. We just have to be open. You can't believe, 100% what's, even what we see, because there's so much more to a story. A lot of us experience trauma. It's a lot of unresolved trauma. And so I let people know that coping isn't enough. And so, because coping, I look at that as like a Band-Aid, right? So a part of coping, we need to heal. You know what? Yeah, we have to literally go back and really, that's why I'm such an advocate of therapy. You can't live in this world. It's a tough place to live, without talking to somebody, about what's happening, whether good or bad.
Well, I am very grateful to you.
Oh, thank you.
I'm glad you are speaking out, and you have a unique perspective, but you also have a universal perspective because, as you say, we're all more alike than different.
Exactly,
so.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you. This was wonderful.
Boy, a lot of what he says sure hit home to me.
He's a very powerful speaker and really has a great presence when he talks and gets that message across to all different groups.
And I love that he's built like a brick house. But beyond his physical strength, Philip knows, he really gets that true strength includes one's mental health.
Oh my gosh, yes. Very well put.
I want to give that number for the suicide hotline, and I really do hope that we all, including myself, program this into our phones. It's 1-800-273-TALK, TALK, or 1-800-273-8255. And we'll link to Philip's site so you can learn more about his counseling and see him in his great T-shirt.
Absolutely. And I want to just make a note that you can now subscribe to this podcast on givingvoicetodepression.com, and it will come to your inbox every Tuesday because we release a new edition weekly. And a special thanks to Philip for sitting down and talking with us and sharing your perspective and wisdom.
Thanks, Philip. We hope that our podcasts bring about a little more understanding or help people articulate their experience of depression a little more. And thanks to each and every person who's digging deep and finding the words and finding the courage to give voice to depression.
And you can find our podcasts on our website, givingvoicetodepression.com, as well as on iTunes, where we hope you will subscribe, rate, and respectfully comment.
And please remember, if you're hurting, speak up. If someone else is hurting, listen up.